When did your something is very wrong here gut instinct turn out to be right? My friend asked me if I wanted to go out to the woods with him and explore abandoned places. He even specifically mentioned that he'll bring a firearm to keep us safe. My alarm bells were effing ringing. I asked him a couple questions. I don't know what, but concluded that it was sketchy as F. My gut told me not to go, so I exited from the conversation while he went asking others the same question. Fast forward a couple years, I heard that he was in prison. I was stunned, but remembered the memory when he asked me if I wanted to go into the woods. Turns out he took a freshman, him being senior at that time, and kept his promise of looking for abandoned places. He found a cabin in the woods, brought his friend inside, and as soon as his friend turned his back, bam, knocked dead. He shot him in the back of the head. I reminisce on this quite often and think, what if I had agreed? Every time I think of this I'm very grateful I'm alive. I was walking home and a woman approached me to ask for directions. I told her how to get where she wanted to go, but she didn't walk that way, but instead walked beside me and kept pace with me. This made me incredibly uncomfortable. So I said have a nice day and doubled my speed, not running, but outpacing her significantly. A moment later, I heard running footsteps. I must have instinctively gripped my purse strap, because I held onto it as she ran by and tried to snatch it. We ended up tussling for a moment. I shouted very loudly, help, she's stealing my purse. Neighbors came outside, causing her to walk away. She did not get my purse. Driving with a friend of mine through a pretty remote forest road, couple of guys in the middle of nowhere tried flagging us down. I almost stopped for them before an alarm went off in my head and I stepped on the gas. My friend started saying what the foo, and at the same time there was a shot and a bullet hit the back of the car. We made it to a police station. Turns out there had been a bunch of people and vehicles going missing in the area that same week. I live in Egypt. General rule is if someone tries to force you to stop, especially in a remote area, run them over. 15 minutes after arriving in Egypt I was in a taxi roaring through desert roads. Sketchy taxi, sketchy roads, a tourist on holiday. Suddenly 2 cars blocked the road ahead and ununiformed guys with AK-47s flagged down the taxi. Can confirm it's a sure pants moment. We had to stop. They flashed police badges and demanded my passport. After sitting for like 10 minutes they gave it back and let us go on our way. No communication, no explanation. Great holiday. Freshman year of college. A friend and I were driving across town and he stopped for gas. It wasn't a dangerous part of town or anything, just a quiet gas station with an old book out front. But this feeling came over me that we needed to get out of there. I tried to shake the feeling by making a joke. This feels like somewhere an axe murderer would hide out. My friend immediately gunned it out of there without filling up. He said he had the same feeling and me bringing it up too scared the shit out of him. On the way home there were about 20 police cars outside. It turns out some guy shot 2 people in a carjacking and robbery. The book was the car he stole. I stopped off at a dollar store to get last minute stuff for my niece's birthday party. Foil or napkins or something. I went to the one I had never been to, in a seedy part of town. There weren't many other people there, since it was a Sunday afternoon. A luxury car pulls up and this gorgeous man gets out and starts trying to catch my eye, like he wanted to ask directions. Dream come true, right? Except my gut started screaming run for no reason. I pretended I didn't see him and got in my car and left. The next morning I see on the news that 3 people were murdered in Charleston. They were all connected to one dude. One of their cars was stolen, and the serial killer was on the loose heading west, through my area. Guess who the suspect was? Yep, the dude I'd seen. They arrested him after he'd kidnapped a girl in Augusta the same night I saw him, and she managed to escape. Still gives me goosebumps. What if I'd stopped and talked to him? In high school I came home early one Friday evening to find that my house just felt off. It's so hard to describe, but the feeling I got walking into my living room just immediately had me on alert and didn't feel right. I walked into the kitchen to find a half-eaten burger from McDonald's which I found strange. Called out to my parents. Got no response. Called them on their cell. Got no answer. 30 minutes later my brother called to tell me that my dad had a heart attack and to get to the hospital. Thankfully it turned out okay, but my gut quite literally knew something bad had happened the moment I stepped in the front door. I've always been prone to gut feelings, but my mom's takes the cake. She went to boarding school and ended up leaving her senior year, but her two best friends still went there. They all lived in similar areas for summer, and my mom wanted to go back and see everyone towards the end of summer break when she was 17. All 3 girls, including my mom, were going to take a train to a nearby station and meet up there and take a taxi to the school. My mom got to our home train station and got hysterical, which she never does, and told her mom she has a horrible feeling and doesn't want to go. Her mom told her to absolutely not go, and they went home. Later on that night, they got a call that the 2 girls who went were in a car accident with a drunk taxi driver on the way to the school. My mom's most best friend in the world was thrown from the car and decapitated. The other girl was so severely injured that she was more or less a vegetable and paralyzed from the neck down. She lived about another decade unable to speak or move and then passed away in a home. My mom has been through the ringer in life, but this has always made her tell me to always follow my gut feeling. She said she never had a gut feeling when she was a teen, and this was the only time she ever did. She was looking forward to this trip for months, but that feeling was enough to make her back out right when she was boarding the train. My mom is so strong, and I'm not sure why this happened, but I'm thankful for whatever power allowed my mother to be okay. Possibly if your mother actually went, due to a different chain of events happening, they could have got another taxi driver. That is, your mother met up and said, hold up, I need to use the washroom or something. Always interests me to think how the smallest decisions we make can drastically change our lives. I love my stepsister to pieces, but she is way too trusting with people she doesn't know well. About 10 years ago she was living with a couple of roommates who became her best friends. She would tell me stories about them over the phone. We lived in different cities, and I would just think, Jesus Christ, these girls are messes. She could hear the weariness in my voice after telling me stories about their troubled lives and how they are really good people who have just been through a lot. I didn't buy it. I can't think of all the stories because it's been too long, but they were always sketchy as hell. Cut to my stepsister inheriting $20,000 from a deceased relative. She was young and super excited about it, and I knew she probably didn't keep the new money a secret. About one fine week later, one of her roommates calls her panicking, saying that this guy who she's been talking to online kidnapped her and was holding her for ransom. A $15,000 ransom. And she called my stepsister for the ransom, not her parents. Her effing roommate. She calls me, freaking out because she didn't know what to do. I asked her if she had told her roommate about the money. Of course she did. Move out, sis. Dfo. Those little girls who are really good people but have just been through a lot, yeah, they're liars. She reluctantly followed my advice and thankfully didn't try to make a deal with them. I told her to call the police. If I remember correctly, she didn't. She still worries me sometimes. I was walking home when suddenly I had this gut feeling I will be mugged. I kept walking. When I got to the corner, 2 guys jumped me, started delivering some puckins, but man, I'm no Rocky. My shirt was devastated. My nose was bleeding. I glassed flew like 3 meters away. Oh yeah, most importantly, got mugged anyway. Oh, feeling you're about to be mugged is awful. Some months ago, I was walking with my BF to a convenience store to get some snacks or whatever, and I saw a guy just kind of standing under a street light. I thought it was weird but ignored it. We got to the store, bought our food and went back. On the way back I saw him again, so I pulled my boyfriend and crossed the street to avoid the creepy guy. Sure enough, he started following us, but my BF was oblivious. I made us walk faster, and thankfully we got to where my BF lived and some neighbors were there, but the creepy guy was just steps away at that point. Had we not walked faster, we probably would have been mugged too. This is why my wife and I carry pepper spray always now. We got rolled up on by 2 gangbangers right before Christmas while returning from shopping. I was unarmed at the time. They pulled up really fast right next to us when they were about to exit their car. I faced them and put my right hand in my jacket pocket like I was armed, and yelled out their license plate out loud. We then kept walking. They revved their engine and screeched up next to us again, and I gave the deepest death stare of my life and told my wife to keep walking with our dog. There were some nice softball-sized rocks in the garden below. I was about to pick one up. At that point I was ready for anything. Luckily they then sped off. Next day I bought 3 pepper sprays. Our neighborhood is up and coming and has tech workers mixed with homeless and low-income housing. It can be a scary place at night. At a party in college, two thoughts occurred at the same time. 1. Wow, there's a lot of people here. And 2. A lot of these girls look really young. Nope the F out. Found out later party was busted and people were in jail for a variety of things. 0. I went to this acquaintance's 35th birthday party. There are 4 people in the living room when we get there. There's this young looking girl with this guy in his 30s. Odd. But they seemed very coupley and the host isn't phased. So I guess she just looks young for her age. The host sends us to the basement where the party's in full swing. They've got someone DJing and a cool light setup and people dancing. So we start dancing too. After a few minutes we start looking around at our surroundings a little more. We're surrounded by 13-year-olds. Everyone in our group realized it at the same time and we all locked eyes and noped out of there. Cops were arriving as we were leaving. 1:30 AM leaving a club with a well-lit parking lot. We had just bought a bottled water and were walking to the car. We saw a couple, guy holding girl and girl throwing up, offered the guy to give the girl our water. He took a swig, didn't give her any, and put it back on the car they were between. We were a little taken aback and told him to give her the water. He made a vile, disgusting face as if we were cheering him on. We walked a few feet and knew something was wrong. Had the guys we were with check back and he was pants down while she was unconscious, not puking. He was forcing himself from behinks, from the front. It looked like all clothes were still on. Once discovered, they fell to the floor and she smacked her head on the pavement. My friends beat the shit out of him and we called the police. Tried to comfort the girl although she was very confused and disoriented. For some reason he was insistent on explaining himself and calling to her by a wrong name. Filed a police report. Found her dumbfounded friends. Answered all of the detectives' questions when they called for a follow-up statement to give to the district attorney. Evil has a feeling. If you see something, say something. Looking dumb or feeling dumb is much less shy than what could actually be happening. Went to see fireworks one time. As I was watching I got a bad feeling being as close as I was and even wondered how many people have died from fireworks. Not even 30 seconds later one of the launch pipes for the fireworks tipped or something. All I remember were fireworks launching and exploding right in my direction and one of the firework tails whizzing right past my head. Then me running away like mad. This reminds me of the Canberra hospital implosion. In 1997 the Canberra hospital was being demolished, imploded. To make was for the National Museum. The government decided to make an event out of it and encouraged everyone to gather on the edge of the lake to watch. Over 100,000 people turn out, but the implosion was a failure and sent debris flying into the crowd 500 meters away. A young girl was struck and killed and 9 other people were seriously injured. I woke up from a nap with a horrible stomach pain. I called my mom and she told me to just take an antacid, but I just felt that it was something very wrong. I went to urgent care, who immediately sent me to the ER. Turns out it was my gallbladder and I had to have surgery. Went out for beers with some friends. Guy at the bar kept staring at my female friend. Didn't think nothing of it initially, thought maybe he's just into her. Alarm bells start ringing for some reason. Minutes later he went to my friend, then saw him try to slip something in her drink while she was talking to another friend of ours. Good thing I was watching, told him to F off with that roofish. He tried to punch me but Miss Bouncer saw he got kicked out. Funniest part was that when we met up with a mate of mine from uni that night he was beating A for doing the same thing to his GF. Watch your drink lads. My parents' cat loves me, loves to sniff and lick my feet, play with me from his window perch and generally be an adorable goofy little badass. So last week when we all went out to dinner and back to their house for drinks and the cat didn't come out to greet me, it was odd. He was under the bed and refusing to come out, which was unusual, but we had our first thunderstorm of the season and he's only 2, so we chalked it up to being freaked out and left him there. 90 minutes later my this isn't right instinct is ringing like a mental fire alarm, so I went to check on him and he still wouldn't come out or move and he didn't seem to recognize me. $1,000 in emergency vet bills at 3 AM and we find out he had broken his femur very badly, needed another couple thousand worth of surgery and would likely have been in pain for the rest of his life and had bladder complications that would have needed frequent catheterization. We think he must have snagged a nail jumping down from his window perch. which was about 5 feet high and hung there or landed poorly. I've never seen my stoic 6'4" dad cry harder than when they made the decision that it was cruel to keep him alive and that if they loved him they should put him down. Our entire family is heartbroken. I've never regretted being right about anything this much in my entire life. Less dramatic than a lot of others, but nonetheless, near my old apartment there was a back road that you would take to get to Target. However, you had to go through one stoplight that was just on the other side of a hill's crest. From my side, the view is slightly blocked by a building towards the hill's high side. I pull up to the light and wait for it to turn green. It turns, and I wait for a second. The person behind me even honks, but something held me back. Before I can even think about starting to go, one of the open trailer trucks used to move construction equipment comes flying through their red lighting at probably 40-50 miles per hour. Not sure if I would have been hit or someone else, but I'm glad I didn't go. I had a bad allergy season which turned into a bad sinus infection which turned into bronchitis. It wasn't getting any better, so I got into a GP. He said it could be bronchitis or something worse. He couldn't call it. As much as I hate hospitals, my gut was screeching at me that something was wrong. Went to ER just in case. I had multiple pulmonary embolisms. 1 in 3 people with one undiagnosed PA don't make it to the ER. The doc said my lungs glowed in the CAT scan. On the upside, I have a strong heart, so I have that going for me. If you think something is wrong, if you have that creeping, crawling sense of doom, panic, unease, and fear that settled on the back of your mind like a large spider, listen to it.